my name is Gina and welcome to my channel. I make videos all about real estate, economics, LA, anything in that realm, I make videos about it. So if you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe. Today I'm going to be doing a video on a really exciting topic for me, at least. I think it's really exciting, and it was recommended to me by one of my best friends. Thank you, you know who you are. And I'm going to be talking about the pros and cons of renting versus buying and which one is a better option for you. So I think there's really two sides to look at this question from. One of them is a logistical side. So you have to ask yourself, do you see yourself staying in the same city for a few years, so at least 3 to 4 years, or do you see yourself moving the next year to two? Because if you're going to be moving pretty quickly, there's a lot of costs incurred with like selling a home, so you're not going to want to buy something that you're going to sell in the next year or two, unless you're flipping or something like that. So if you're going to be staying in place for at least a few years, that's one step to knowing that you can even buy. Another question you have to ask yourself is, can you actually afford to buy a place? Do you have enough saved for a down payment? Do you qualify for a loan? And do you have enough savings just in case anything needs repairs and for property taxes, and just in case something happens, such as a pandemic, and you lose your job and you still need to be paying your mortgage? At least right now there's a lot of programs that help homeowners with mortgages who can't afford them right now. But, just in case something goes wrong and crazy, as we've seen can happen, you should have some savings just to cover you. So if you can afford a home and you are planning on staying in one city for the next few years, then you can really ask yourself, should I be renting or should I be buying? And a lot of people, especially younger people who are out of high school, college aged, and even out of college, kind of assume that they are going to wait until they're settling down, till they're married maybe having children, or at some later stage in their lives when they have things really figured out to consider buying a home. And I think that this is sort of unambitious, and it's not preparing yourself for a future, because if you're purchasing a home earlier in life, the equity that you are building up, you can use for a future home if you do want to have a family and you want to be in a better area with a better school district and a bigger home to raise children in, for example, just one scenario. But I do think there are a lot of benefits to thinking about reaching your goals sooner rather than putting them off to deal with later in life. The question of what's better financially, renting or buying, can be a really complicated question and really depends on each person. So I'm going to simplify it and kind of make it general. And of course, this scenario isn't going to work for everyone, but unless you're some crazy investor who needs to take into consideration opportunity costs of putting the down payment towards a new business or putting it in the stock market and getting some crazy returns on it that way, this scenario works pretty well for any average person who is even making some good interest on their investments, if they have any. The main question I think that someone needs to ask themselves when they're deciding whether they want to rent or buy is, what are the unrecoverable costs of both of these? And what I mean by unrecoverable costs is, how much money are you spending that you'll never see again versus money that you might be spending but is going into your own bank account. And when you're renting, it's really easy to see what these costs are. It's pretty much just your rent plus any utilities or parking, anything like that you're spending every month. And you multiply that by 12, and that is your yearly unrecoverable costs. It pretty much is going from your bank account into your landlord's piggy bank and going towards their mortgage and making money for them, pretty much. So that's what your unrecoverable costs are for renting. For buying a home, it gets a little more complicated, and it depends on a lot of things, such as the condition of the home you're buying, whether this is going to be a condo or a single family home, because a condo would probably have HOA fees and a single family home will not. So depending on what you're buying, it might vary a little bit, but I've come up with like a simple formula that can work to estimate what your unrecoverable costs are for buying a home. I'm going to stop you guys right now. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps me a lot. I'm going to assume in this scenario that you have a 20% down payment saved up and you are getting a loan for 80% of the value of the home. This is pretty typical for most buyers these days. It's much easier to qualify when someone has 20% down. It also means they're not paying mortgage insurance, which is an insurance for your lender. So on top of home insurance, you'd be paying an insurance to cover your mortgage. We'll assume that you have 20% down, which I think is a good safe amount to buy your first home. So when you pay that down payment, it goes into the equity of your home, which is your piggy bank. It's not like it goes away. You put it in there and you can always get it back. It's not gone forever. It is a recoverable cost, not unrecoverable cost. So the unrecoverable costs for buying a home, I would say, are repairs and maintenance, which I estimate can be from about 0.5% to 1% of the property value every year. So let's say you're buying a $650,000 home. 0.5% of this is about $3,000. A percent would be $6,000. This could go towards any maintenance, any plumbing issues you have and you need to call a plumber to come fix something. That's a cost that you wouldn't incur when you're renting, for example. And some other costs might be like if a window broke, you would have to pay for that to get it fixed. Any little issues here and there that come with buying a house. And obviously this varies a lot. If you purchase a house that's in really terrible condition, it might need a lot of work and get a lot of repairs to just maintain it. Whereas if you buy a newer home or a home in better condition, it's gonna be cheaper. And of course, it also depends on how handy you are. If you wanna take gardening into your own hands, you don't need to hire a gardener to keep up your garden or your backyard or your front yard. So it depends a lot, but I think it's a good estimate if you think about 0.5 to 1% of the property value. A second unrecoverable cost is property taxes, and these ones are really easy to calculate. Depending on where you are in the world, these vary, but here in Los Angeles, I believe in all of California, it's 1.25% on almost all properties. There are some properties that are exempt from this and have a much lower tax rate. That doesn't have to do with the sale price, and that has to do with the Mills Act, totally different. But a large majority of the properties here in LA, the property tax is 1.25%. So in the example of a $650,000 home, which I think is a really good starting spot for a first-time buyer in LA. You can probably get something with 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms in a nice, safe neighborhood with a good amount of space in that price range. So I think that is a good place to go off of. 1.25% of that. So your property taxes on that would be $8,125 every year. And then your third unrecoverable cost with owning a home is your mortgage interest. And so this is kind of hard to calculate what it would be every year. It depends on the interest rate that you get for your loan. Right now, interest is incredibly low, but that also depends on your credit score and your down payment. But let's say you're putting 20% down. So in the example of a $650,000 home, you're 80% of that, so the amount of the loan that you're going to be taking out would be $520,000. If you're able to get 3.2%, which is pretty doable nowadays, which is crazy low, the interest on your first year would be about $16,000, and it would go down every year because as you're paying off your loan, that 3.2% is off of the remaining balance of the loan. That would go down every single year for 30 years until it became practically zero. That's on the maximum end of the range of your unrecoverable cost for interest of that first year of owning a home. Another unrecoverable cost would be home insurance, which is about 0.3% of the purchase price of a home. And in this case of $650,000, it'd be $1,950. So in this example, the total unrecoverable costs for owning your home is about 5%. And this is being pretty liberal with your costs because this is taking into consideration that the first year you're going to be paying the most in interest on your mortgage payment. When you have a mortgage, the payment stays the same every single month, but the amount of that mortgage payment that goes towards your principal, which is your equity, basically your piggy bank, it gets larger and larger, and the amount that goes towards interest gets smaller and smaller. So that interest payment is going to be your largest interest payment, and that's right at the beginning when you're paying 3.2%, for example, on your $520,000 loan. So that would be your maximum cost for owning a home. And in this example of this hypothetical 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, 5% of this $650,000 hypothetical home you're purchasing would be $32,500 of unrecoverable costs. Every other cost that you are paying to purchase the home, so that's the down payment and the principal part of your mortgage payment, goes into your piggy bank pretty much, and you can always access that later. Once you sell the home, you get that money back into your bank account, and you can use that towards purchasing a different property or on a different investment or whatever it is you want. So that doesn't go away. What you're throwing away is the $32,500 that first year you own the home, and that would probably go down a little bit each year. Another thing to note is that your interest that you're paying on the mortgage, so that 3.2% that I calculated in this example, and your property tax up to $10,000, which totally covers it in this example, is completely tax deductible. So let's say you make $100,000 a year, you can take those entire amounts, so that was over $16,000 in this example, plus $8,000 in property taxes, you can deduct from your income of that year, and you're paying taxes only on what's left over. Whereas the rent that you're paying every year is not tax deductible. This can reduce what you're paying in taxes drastically if it puts you in a lower tax bracket, for example. If you compare this to renting, your unrecoverable costs in renting is pretty much 100% of your rent and any utilities you're paying. And just to give you an example to compare this with, in LA, if you were to have a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment, you're probably going to be paying somewhere between $3,000 and $3,500 on a very conservative side. And if you're paying $3,500, for example, it's you and a roommate, and you're sharing a place, that's just $1,750 a month each. You guys are combined paying about $42,000 a year of unrecoverable costs. So this kind of puts it into perspective. If you have a scenario where you have two people, whether that be you and a roommate, you and your best friend, you and your partner, whatever it may be, and you have a 2-bedroom house versus a 2-bedroom apartment, you're paying about $32,000 that is unrecoverable in the house and $42,000 for the apartment. And that's not putting into perspective that your unrecoverable costs of owning the home are going to be going down each year, and your rent is probably going to be going up about 3 to 4% a year, which is typical in LA, and that's allowed with rent control. So that's the financial aspect of it. If you can find a place that you're comfortable living in and can rent for less than 5% of the price of a home that you would want, then it might be worth going for renting a place. But if you cannot, which it's pretty tough to beat the 5% unrecoverable cost of owning a place, then it's much better financially to buy a place. So whether that means you and a partner or you and a roommate or a best friend are thinking about what you should do and what is smart financially for you, you can think about it this way and you can play out the scenario. Of course, these numbers are going to vary a lot depending on your situation and what you could be doing with that down payment that you're putting towards the home. But it's worth a thought to do the math and calculate what is a better financial move for you and what will pay off in the future. And in this scenario, I totally didn't even consider that properties can appreciate a lot every single year. So in that $650,000 home scenario, maybe you can sell that home 10 years from now for $900,000 and make a profit of $350,000. So that is another thing to consider, that your investment on the real estate may appreciate, whereas when you're renting a place, you are giving that rent to your landlord, and it's going into their pockets and going towards paying their mortgage and going into their piggy bank, pretty much. Whereas when you're buying a home, it goes into your piggy bank, and you can make that piggy bank available for you later when you want to buy a bigger home. Just some food for thought. I hope you guys liked this video and thought it was interesting. If you guys have any questions about this, leave it in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys thought about this, and if you have any other recommendations or want to see other videos like this explaining interesting economics or real estate or property topics, I'm happy to make videos about them. Please leave me those in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.